Welcome to Make Sylacauga Healthy Again. I'm your host, Dr. Jonathon Douglas of Broadway Spinal Care. Last week, the Make America Healthy Again initiative pushed forward a report that we've all been waiting on. It's not really groundbreaking, but it was 68 pages that I'm pretty sure all of my viewers have already read. But just in case you haven't, we're going to give you about a 15-minute summary of what our federal government is doing to try to get us healthy again. And if you don't want to watch the whole show, let me just say that the basis of the study says that we're about as healthy as a fried Twinkie. Stay tuned if you want to learn more. So the 68-page report that came out of Make America Healthy Again initiative is leading to a report with all kinds of ideas of how we can fix this in our world, and that's going to come out in August of 25. But the reason we started Make Sylacauga Healthy Again is because we can't wait for the federal government to put out a report in August and then allow that to trickle down somehow to Sylacauga and make some miraculous health discovery happen here. It's just not going to happen. So we're trying to create something in our small community that spreads to others' communities, and if we start that at this local level, then we can really have a grassroots program that can build and build and build, so that when the federal government gets some of these big programs they're working on online, there will already be a framework and in a way like a grid that will allow this to spread. But what the report said, so we're going to take 68 pages, we're going to summarize it quickly like I said. So the first thing is, and this is not surprising, we eat too much ultra-processed food. And so we're going to do a comparison of that as we go along, but what do we mean by ultra-processed food? I don't think anybody would really be surprised to think that something like Skittles is something you can't make at home, or Doritos, we talk about that a lot. Dorito, you can't make that at home. So in the definition of an ultra-processed food, the way I describe it to patients is if you don't have the ingredients at home where you could even begin to produce something like this, then you have to start wondering how in the world do they produce it and what are they putting in it and what are we taking in when we eat it. So we're going to talk more about that in a few minutes. Second is toxins in our environment. And so we're exposed to things every single day, and it starts when we're a baby and you're using some kind of baby shampoo, and then we use scented candles and we use other nasty shampoos as adults. We have toothpaste that has junk in it. We go outside and we've got let's say a train derailment and there's something, burning in the air, or a neighbor's burning trash, or, all these kind of things. There are so many microplastics and toxins around us all the time that our ancestors were not exposed to. And so that is making us sick, and again, that's not something that's groundbreaking. The third is over-medicalization. And so we treat things with medicine, which has toxins in it also and all kinds of side effects, but we treat things with medicine that are actually lifestyle issues. And so if we don't look at a lifestyle problem when there is a lifestyle issue that could be causing this illness, then really what we are as a medical industry is drug dealers. We're not healthcare providers. We're just providing a drug to fix something that we really could fix in a very simple way without drugs. And so they're looking at how they can fix some of that. And I know President Trump has worked on some of that in the last few weeks you've heard about, but there will be more coming. And then the last one is, this is definitely not shocking, lack of exercise. We do not move. We're sedentary, and we are getting worse at being sedentary, and we have to move if we're going to burn calories. We can't eat calories all the time and then not move and think that there'll be any health that comes from it. So I know the 1950s was a long time ago, but as we compare things, the 1950s is really when things started to fall apart. The food pyramid changed. They started having all of these lab-produced things available. So in the 1950s, 5% of our diet was ultra processed, and that's when these things were really kicking in. You had these TV dinners and all the above. Today it's about 60% of our diet. 60% of our diet is ultra processed stuff. And the government has just come out with this, again, not groundbreaking, but just come out that that is the reason that we have so much cancer, and we have so much diabetes, and we have so much attention deficit disorder, and we have so much depression. All of that is coming from us not feeding our brain, not feeding our body food that's right for us. So the simplest way to fix that, of course, is going to a more whole food diet and getting off of this ultra processed. But then people say, well, that's more expensive and it's harder to plan. It can be, it really can be, but how expensive is it to be sick all the time and to have to go to the doctor all the time, or to miss work, or just not feel good? I mean, to have your life where you have no energy. So we're going to talk more in the future. I'm going to do a whole show on the cost of eating healthy versus not. But the thing that I really want to ask our parents today, though, is, again, this is the government saying this, which the government fixing a problem is a rare situation, but I think we're actually in that rare situation right now. But with the ultra-processed foods, even if as a parent you're not willing to change from these ultra-processed foods, you love your stuff, can you please start allowing your children to have different choices? Because if we get the kids where they're not hooked on all this junk, and not given junk as a treat, because that's the biggest problem I see, is that kids do something special and they're like, oh my gosh, let's get them some Skittles, or get them some kind of Starburst, or whatever kind of ridiculous stuff that is full of toxins and junk. Then if we can just start training our kids that junk food is not a reward for good behavior or some kind of success, then at least the next generation can do better, even if the current generation doesn't really want to get there. Exposure to toxins is next. And so in the 1950s, I mean, we had almost no toxins that were really readily available. People had whole foods. If you looked at the ingredients of foods, there was nothing in there. People didn't put things on their skin. They didn't smell things all the time that had fragrances. And we're right at 80,000 or more chemicals that we're exposed to on a regular basis. This is not somebody who works in an industry where they're exposed to chemicals all the time. I'm just talking about living normal life. Maybe this desk was cleaned with some kind of cleaner that had chemicals. It's very likely. And so then when I lean on the desk and I put my arm on here, then if we tested my blood within a few minutes, I would have some of that exposure in me. Everything you touch all day long, same kind of thing. So we're going to look at all hidden toxins. That's going to be an upcoming show also, and just start thinking about how we can clear that out of our world. Over-medicalization. So I don't think anybody has to debate this situation. We have way, way too many people who take prescriptions for things that are lifestyle and diet related. So under 5% of people were on regular prescriptions in the 1950s. And now you could argue that there weren't really a lot of prescriptions available, which is true, but these people were a lot healthier. They had, at that point, a longer lifespan, and they weren't taking all this stuff. And now nearly 70%. And if you spent a day with us in the clinic, you would not believe how young people are, really, really, really young, who are on antidepressants, anxiety meds, attention deficit meds. And then when you talk about diet, toxic exposure, they all are eating Funyuns, and they're eating cupcakes, and they're eating Little Debbies, and all the things that are known to cause a lot of those problems. And that's really very rarely discussed. For some reason, the medical system doesn't look at that first. We should. We do in our office, but it's very rare. And we end up with kids that are linked to these side effect driven prescriptions. And once you get a child on a prescription like that, they very rarely come off. They just kind of transition to other things, other things, other things. And I can tell you, if you spend a day in the clinic again, you would see our 90-plus-year-olds that drive to see us. They exercise every day. They have a quality of life that you wouldn't believe. Those people aren't on all these prescriptions. They really aren't. And then we've got 25-year-olds who have basically no quality of life, and they're always on just a whole string of things. And so you've got to look at the big picture, and I believe that's what we're finally starting to do, is can we find a solution other than drugs for problems? And if we can't, then there are certainly drugs that are necessary. But if we can, we do not need to keep going to drugs as our first line of defense, because it is not the first line of defense. It is way down the line if other things fail. Lack of movement. If we look around our world, it's unbelievable how not physically fit people are in general. 1950s, about 20% of people had what they call a sedentary lifestyle. And today, over 50%, I would say it's more like 80 or 90% from what we see in the office. And the thing that scares me the most is the screen time. We see kids that come in with their parents and they do not get off of their device. They are looking down the entire time. They walk out looking at their phone, they get in the car and look at their phone, they go home and look at their phone. They just purely do not move. They should be out in a creek picking up frogs and doing something that's active for most of the day, and instead they wake up, go to the TV, go to their phone. Most everybody does something like that. And so we have to start working in the right direction. So in August, they're going to bring out this report. They're going to basically outline everything we just talked about, and they're going to say that as a nation, we have to start fixing these problems. But do we really need to wait for August 25 for the government to put out some big report that probably nobody's going to read, and then I'll do another show summarizing? Can we just go ahead and get started now? And again, if we're parents and we don't want to do it ourselves, so we're reluctant, we're saying, oh, I'm set in my ways, or I'm too old, or whatever the excuse is, well, then can we at least start getting the kids out? Can we get them out playing again? Can we get them not eating junk? Can we just take the junk out of the house or away from the kids and say, we're just not eating this anymore? Can we start looking at the stuff that our kids are putting on their skin? Or what kind of toothpaste are they using? All those kind of things. Can we start to look at those toxins and start to train them to start looking at that also? Because if the kids start reading labels, then we really can change the next generation. It might be that it's kind of a lost cause for some of the older because they're so set in their ways, but can we somehow get the kids doing better on that? I sure hope so. So I always like to leave with a song lyric, and this one I think sums this entire thing up, that every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. So why don't we end the beginning that started with the new food pyramid and all the processed foods and all that junk, and why don't we go back to what we did before? Why don't we start using beef tallow, and why don't we cook with lard, and why don't we make sure we've got wheat that comes from non-GMO, and why don't we stop using pesticides in our yard where the kids play? All those kind of small things, because if we can end that beginning that never should have happened and start with a new beginning, then we truly can make Sylacauga healthy again and hopefully make America healthy again. We'll see you soon.